She is coordinating producer too of SportsCenter Los Angeles, and she is the great Aisha Chaney on Twitter at Off the Chaney. I got to say, that's pretty creative of her to use that. And we're going to talk about her life. We are going to show you why there are so many different reasons to root for her. We're going to talk about the battles she's overcome, why she is so strong-willed, and why she's inspirational. And this is the On to Something podcast. I am Bryan Fenley, a national radio anchor on Twitter at Bryan Fenley. Aisha, so glad to have you on here. And one of the things I noticed from you is your strength. That's what emanates just being in a room with you or having a conversation with you. And so as I lead off this conversation, I wanted to start with this. When has your strength been tested most in your life?
Whew. To be honest with you, it was tested most. Well, first, let me start off by saying thank you very much for having me on. Really appreciate it. My strength was tested most. I'll give you two examples. First and foremost, when I lost my mother when I was 19 years old. She lived with a brain tumor the size of a ping pong ball on the left side of her brain for about 9 years. And a grand mal seizure ultimately took her life. But it was one of those things where I knew my mom had a terminal illness, even at me being a young age. But in my head, I guess I kind of always just thought when mom's going to die, the doctor's going to tell us that, come say goodbye and all of that. I just kind of thought that that's how it was going to happen. But instead, I actually had a flight scheduled to go to Georgia to visit her and my younger siblings for 5 days before I started my sophomore year at Howard. And instead, I got woken up in the middle of the night, phone call from my dad, or my dad was in my room with my stepmom and my brother. It was 3:00 in the morning. He said, "I just got a call from your grandmother and your mom died." So it was just, obviously my world was blown up, and it was really hard. And I was, it could have gone one of two ways. People deal with grief in different ways. And, I'm in my late 30s now, and I've now lived over half of my life without my mom. And it's been very difficult, but it's also been one of those things where I look at every situation knowing that I've been through worse than that, so it gives me that mentality of I've already gone through the toughest thing I've ever that I'm ever going to go through, unless my dad or my son pass away, God forbid. I know the one thing about life is that nobody makes it out of life, right? We're all going to die at some point. But the fact that my mom died at age 40 and, I was 19 and I had to deal with that. But it just helps me have the perspective of things could be worse. You're dealing with stuff, you're producing a show, something happens, whatever. Okay, fine. It sometimes bothers me hearing people complain about their parents, or my mom pissed me off. And sometimes I want to say, at least you have your mother, chill out. But I also want people to feel comfortable talking to me about their problems. And I have friends who are just I'm sorry, I just had to vent really quick. And I'm it's fine. You're still human and you still have, your moments, and it's fine. We're friends, and you don't have to couch what you say for me. But that's easily the toughest. And then the second, time in my life where I had to exhibit a lot of strength is when I found out that my son had autism. And he got diagnosed with autism shortly before his 3rd birthday. And it was one of those things where I'm a single mom, and I just remember thinking how am I going to do this? I called my dad and I was like, do I just need to give up my career? Should I come home? I'm going to need you guys. I can't do this by myself. But I'm happy to say that he is 7 years old now, and he is thriving. I have him in an all-inclusive school. And he, he's in a class of 24 people, and about 10% of each class has kids with special needs. And I've just seen him thrive. He has thrived so much. His speech has gotten better. I just had his annual IEP about a month ago. And he has tested out of math. He does not need a math goal for the 2nd straight year because he's that smart in math. He's doing mental math. Since he was 5 years old, he'd be Mommy, I'm going to stay up until 12, like we're like out one night and celebrating, or we're at a hotel for like Mother's Day, I think. And we were like watching like Luca or something. And he's like, Mommy, in 22 more minutes, it's going to be 12. And I was like, damn, like how is he able to do that? And it's just cool seeing him thrive and grow and just get more comfortable with, his own little personality. And, it was hard at the time. And like I said, I doubted myself a little bit, and I questioned how I was going to do this. And I dealt with a lot of like stress and anxiety, and I had to find a therapist and all of that. But through a lot of prayer, and the biggest thing I think was also like not just thinking like, oh God, like my son has a label for the rest of his life,
Yeah.
or just tripping about it. Like I took the advice of somebody telling me, look, it doesn't matter what this is. It just matters that you get him the early intervention and the early help. And so I did all of that. I did the ABA therapy and the speech therapy, the occupational therapy, the social skills classes, and I just balanced it all with my job, and I prioritized him, and I made sure that my bosses understood, and kind of went through a couple of scenarios where I was like, hey guys, like I'm not going to be able to work weekends this season, when I was at the NFL Network. And one of my bosses, so I'm still really close with now, is like, well, Ish, like all the important people work on Sundays. And I'm like, oh, guess what? I'm still important, and I can still be one of your best producers, and I can do shifts during the week because I need to do ABA therapy with him on Saturday, and I need to take him to social skills on Sunday. And like, I need to be present for that. And they said, okay. And, I was still able to excel, and I had to do more work during the week because of it. But thankfully they made that exception for that 1 year. And then I was able to fully go back to my Sundays the following year and just make it all work.
Aisha, with your son in the occupation that you're in, it's so fast paced, it's nonstop, it's a news cycle that's 24/7, and you're pulled in multiple directions as you're describing, oftentimes trying to be convinced to work weekends and working long hours. Despite all that, in hearing about the work and how you've intervened in your son's life and made it better, how do you stay present with your son?
I'm very, very intentional about the time that I have with him, like I'm his whole world, and I know that, and I am very, very committed to be making sure, like now that I'm back at ESPN, I've been back since October of 2021, and it helps that like my manager also has kids, and he's in Bristol, and so I to this day I haven't had to use a sick day because like or oh, my sitter called out, or oh, I need to stay home with my son. Like that hasn't happened yet. Not saying that it's not going to, but my boss also has kids, so he understands that like kids are going to come first regardless, right? Um, I probably second guessed myself for about a month when I left my job at NFL Network after 8 years, and I left like it was like a 9 to 5:30 type of job, right? So I was always there every night, picking up my son from school, or, the sitter situation was just a little bit different. But accepting this job now, working on SportsCenter, I knew that I was going to have to make a sacrifice, and it was going to be, I would be away from him only probably like 3 nights a week. So I still have that other time. And I will say that one of those nights is a Saturday. And so during that day, like if he wakes up at 7:30 in the morning and mommy's at home until 3:30, that's still 8 hours of like, oh, let's go to the park, or let's go get pizza, or let's, have a tickle fest, or let's watch, Toy Story 2, or whatever he wants to do. I spend that time with him. And then my off days of Sunday and Monday, yes, that means I don't have much of a life outside of work and my son, but like on Sundays, that's my day with Ashton. Like I took him to a birthday party 2 weeks ago. I took him to a Super Bowl party with me, and he, just seeing the way that he's able to adjust and be around people that he may not even know, but he doesn't care because he's with mommy and he's just thriving. And, like a few weeks ago, I took him to like the Disney hotel because it was MLK weekend, and it was supposed to be we would have Sunday and Monday together, but it ended up being we stayed overnight on a Sunday, and he was just living his best life. When I tell, like, I'll send you the pictures. He was like Mickey head to toe. He was like, Mommy, I'm going to sleep in my Mickey robe. Actually, it's right here. I'm going to show you.
Let's see it.
My bad.
Let's see it.
Like
Oh
an
my
entire
goodness.
Mickey Mouse with like the ears and everything,
Oh my gosh, the
full
full
on
body suit.
robe, right? Like he was like, I'm going to sleep in my Mickey robe. He had on his Mickey slides, Mickey hoodie, sweats, everything. And he just had so much fun. And it's like, that when we left the next morning, and again, I wanted to like take him to Disneyland the next day, but we ended up having to do a show because my boss was like, oh, you know, we were going to do the show from Bristol, but we can't now. So we need you guys to close after Van Pelt. And, you know, I still had that day with him though on Sunday, and we stayed until, you know, and we did like a late checkout on Monday. And Ashton was like, Mommy, I want to stay at Mickey Hotel forever. And I'm like, I know you do, honey, but we have to check out now. We have to go home now, you know, but I still just make those moments special. And I want him to have those experiences, you know, and those memories with me. And so far, so good. And the cool thing about it, what I've noticed as of late, I'm happier, you know, not that I didn't love my job at NFL Network. Like I had a phenomenal 8 years, really, really love the people that I worked with and that I'm still friends with to this day, learned so much in my career, but I was doing a lot. I was involved in so much, and I didn't even realize that like my energy was impacted. And now that like I'm in a role where I'm thriving and I feel like I'm doing something that I should have been doing a long time ago, I feel like my staff respects me. I think I'm a really good people leader, and like I'm less stressed, I'm less anxious, and that has just really been feeding off of my energy. Feeds my son feeds off of that, and so because I'm calmer, he's calmer, and it's like because mommy's happy, Ashton's happy. And it's just like really, really worked out.
Aisha Chaney is with me, ESPN coordinating producer to SportsCenter in Los Angeles. On Twitter at Off the Chaney. I'm Bryan Fenley on Twitter at Bryan Fenley. So I'm listening to you reveling in being a mom here and how you're spoiling your son, Ashton. And going back to something you said earlier, Aisha, in that how much do you think the love you're pouring into your son is partly due to the love that you want to show your own mom, and that you're taking that and channeling that into your own son?
Wow. That's I just like got this feeling in my stomach when you just said that, because you know it's something that my therapist has kind of talked to me about a little bit. And like there's times where like I'll just be like driving in my car and I'll just like I'll see something that like reminds me of my mom, or like her one of her favorite songs was like Pleasure Principle by Janet Jackson. And like if there's moments where I'll think about her and then the song will come on that reminds me of her, and then I'll just like sit there and
Wow.
kind of cry a little bit, and I'll be like, man, like mom, like I wish, like I'm gonna try not to cry right now, but it's like I wish that you can see my baby, you know, like my mom loved kids so much, you know, and when she had her tumor and she wasn't able to continue to do her job at Xerox, she had to, you know, just be a stay-at-home mom with like my younger siblings. And she decided to have like a little at-home daycare, and she was just so good with taking care of kids. And like I talk to my little sister about that sometimes, because she has two daughters of her own, and she lives down in Georgia. And well, she'll be like, God, like Ish, like I would sometimes I feel like life wouldn't be so hard if mom was still here. And I'm like, I know, Lex, I know, like I feel the same way sometimes, but just know that like mom's proud of us. And you know, I have pictures of my mom all around my house. And you know, as Ashton gets older, it's like I show him, I'm like, honey, this is Grandma Barbara, she's in
Oh.
heaven right now with God, you know. And like I explain that to him. And you know, it does get, sometimes I feel like I need to start like journaling and like writing down some of the memories, because like I said, she died when I was 19 and I'm in my late 30s now. So it's like the fact that I've lived half of my life without her, I'm like, man, I don't want to forget any of the memories. And like, yes, I have pictures, but like back then when I was 19, we didn't have cell phones where we're taking videos of everything, where it's like I can sit here and watch videos of my son when I'm at work and I'm like missing him or whatever. I don't have that of my mom. Like I have some pictures, but you know, I really just want to keep her memory alive. And I do a lot of the things that she taught me, and the way that you know, she kind of, you know, that saying from Michelle Obama, like when they go low, you go high.
Sure.
Like she told me that a long time ago, and she didn't say it like that. She was just like, because I could never understand why sometimes she just wouldn't ever get angry. And I'm like, why are you letting him do this? And like, I'd be like the fired up, 18, 19-year-old. And she's just like, honey, she called me Precious. She's like, Precious, I'm not going to change who I am just because of him. Like, I'm going to continue to love. And like, she was like a kill him with kindness person, and like, I've definitely inherited some of that because, I have friends sometimes, not a lot of my friends, like my friends are pretty chill, but like I have one or two people in my life who like love to argue and like love to have the last word. And I'm very much a person. I just told my staff last night, I was like, if somebody told me like water's not wet, I'd be like, oh, word? Damn, thought it was. And it was just like, I just end the conversation because like that's how much I don't have the energy to go back and forth with people sometimes. Like I hate arguing. I hate like it's like I get it enough from my child. And like that's the only person I'm gonna give any sort of energy like that to. Like where my son, I have so many videos where he's just like, I'll be like, honey, like you need to put on a jacket. No jacket. I want to be cold forever. And I'm just like, honey, like you are gonna get sick. Oh, I'll get sick then. And then this morning I'm like, honey, you don't need to do that 20 times. No, I'll do it 21. And then he like smirks and I'm like, okay, this is what I need to like save my energy of the back and forth because I'm going to get it from my son a lot. And I'm just happy that I can even have a conversation with him because I used to call my dad, who I'm a total daddy's girl, and I'd be like, Dad, like I just can't wait to have a conversation with Ashton one day, like when he was really struggling to talk a few years ago. So I just remind myself like, Aisha, yes, you're getting frustrated right now, but guess what? Your son is talking to you and you're having that conversation that you've wanted to have for so long.
As you continue to have conversations with your son, as he continues to mature and get older, how do you think that he's going to verbalize, Aisha, how proud he is of you and how grateful he is for everything that you've done for him?
Whew, man. I think that he's going to see it. I mean, even the fact that now he's like channeling my energy and like, I'm not even kidding. I was just telling my therapist this morning, because I try to meet with her like twice a month, just like mental health is very important to me, just to stay on top of everything. And I told her, I was like, because I, just knocked out 4 final interviews yesterday, I was working at home from 9:30 until 3. And then I had to hop in my car and drive to work and work my shift from 3:30 until midnight. So I was working from 9:30 to 12 and I was more tired than usual. So like I kind of snapped at him this morning, like the usual patience that I would have, I didn't have this morning, and then it rubbed off on him. So it's like this, there's really something to this whole energy thing. And she said, absolutely. Like, of course, you're just tired because you slept 5 hours. Usually it's 6, which isn't great, but I very much cherish the days where I
Yeah.
sleep in and like don't have to wake up at 7:30 to get him ready for school. But that being said, like I know how much my son loves me. I know how much he respects me. I'm ironically going to his school tomorrow because they asked, me and one of the other dads to like come in and volunteer to like read the kids a book. And they were like, what book do you want to read? And I immediately was like, you know what? I want to read this book. I have it right here because I was showing my
Yeah.
therapist. It's called Come Meet Drayden. And it's
Oh.
awesome because it's a book about inclusion. And there's a fellow autism mom on Instagram that wrote this book about her son with autism through the eyes of her other kids. So it's like the kids are telling the story of their brother Drayden. And so I want to read that to Ashton's class. And, as I told you before in like our prep call for this, like the reason why like I'm so passionate about certain things, like on top of just being a Black woman and all that comes with that, like I'm a Black woman who is a single mother of a 7-year-old boy with autism. And I don't want the same things that I'm dealing with. I don't want him to have to go through that. So it's my responsibility to, drive diversity at my job, drive diversity in his life and inclusion more than anything. Like I want him to always, I don't want him to have a label. I don't want people to think like, oh, Ashton's weird because he brings Mickey to school every day. It's like, nope. Like he has a brain just like you do. It just functions a little bit differently, you know? And I want to do whatever I can to just make people aware. And like Ashton knows that. Like he may not always understand everything, but as he continues to get older, he knows how much mommy loves him and is always there for him. And I'm always prioritizing him. Like I will literally be in the middle of a meeting at work. And if he FaceTimes me, I'll tell the person, hold on 1 second, my son's calling. And I'll just do a quick, hi, honey, like mommy's in the middle of a call. And be like, mommy, can I see the cars? Like he wants to see the cars out of my window sometimes. Or mommy, can I see baby Ashton? Because I have like 7 different pictures of him in my office and I'll like show him. And then I'll be like, honey, mommy's going to call you right back. But I love you so much. So I just want to make sure that he knows that no matter what I'm doing, I'm going to be there for him. And I think he knows that.
Let me leave you with this, Aisha. When you think about how you have been there for him, when you think about the barriers that you've overcome, the progress that you are making, the mission you are on to build up others, and what you've done, of course, with your son, your ascendance in sports media, all of these things that you've done, how do you, and what does it look like, and how much time do you give yourself in acknowledging the personal strides you've made in it? And how do you let that sit in with you? How does that settle with you?
I need to do a better job of that, to be honest with you. Like I am not perfect. Like I appreciate that people sometimes like to call me a superwoman. And I appreciate my friends who are like, gosh, like, how do you do it all? Like sometimes I'm honest with them and I'm just like, you guys, like, I don't have a choice. Like, do you understand that like my only other option is to not be a good mom or to not be good at my job? Like, there's no way in hell. Like my dad, who I said, like, I'm a total daddy's girl. We're still close to this day, talk to him all the time. Like he instilled that hard work in me and my older brother, because he's had custody of me since I was 18 months old. Very, very rare circumstances that a man in his mid-20s is able, and him and my mom were never married. They just had me and my older brother, and they split up and they went to court, and my dad got custody of us because at the time he was deemed a more fit parent. He literally had a 2-bedroom apartment in Foster City, California. I grew up in the Bay Area, and I had a room, my brother had a room, and my dad slept on the couch. He very much, like, that story alone just tells you the way that he raised my brother and I. And he put us through college at the same time. My stepmom did come around when they got engaged when I was 7, got married when I was 9. So I don't mean it to say that my dad raised us by himself my whole life, but I learned that work ethic and working hard, and like my dad and my older brother, like that's the reason why I love sports so much. And like they're so proud of me now to know that I've been in this industry for 17 years and I've only worked at my 2 dream jobs, because he taught me that your hard work, he was like, Aisha, if you just pick a career or pick a field that you love, it's never going to feel like work. Like my dad loves working with kids. He busted his ass working 2 jobs my whole life, jobs he didn't really want to do. But when I was in college, he went back to school. He already had his social services degree from San Jose State, but he went back to school to get his teaching credentials. And so he, for like the past 18 years, was able to finish his career as a teacher because, it didn't feel like work, because he has been so impactful in the kids' lives that he has worked with for so many years. And then he just retired a couple of years ago, but he really instilled that in me. Like, hey, if you pick a career, a field that you love, it's never going to feel like work. And he was right. I've been doing this since I was 21, like 9.5 total years at ESPN, did 8 years at NFL. And it truly just doesn't really feel like work. But sometimes, of course, it is hard work. And then when you throw in the Ashton piece and being a single mom and, the therapy and all of that, like it's hard to juggle all of it sometimes, but by the grace of God, because I pray all the time and I am very faith-based, and I know for a fact that if it wasn't for the Lord, I would not be here right now. I just know that. Like I get my my strength from God, and and from my son. Like, he pushes me to continue to just keep prioritizing him, keep working hard. Like, part of the reason I accepted this job is, it's more money, it's a higher position, I have stock. I'm immediately thought like, whoa, Disney stock, that means Ashton's college fund. That was my first thought. I wasn't thinking about anything else but that. And it turned out to be a really, really good decision. And I'm happy, and I'm anxious to see what the future holds for me and Ashton. And I know that that we're going to be good.
Aisha, behind the scenes of you as a coordinating producer to ESPN SportsCenter, behind the scenes of a single mom raising brilliantly her son, is someone at the root of it all in learning about your background, in that failure was never an option. And there was only one way to go. And that was the only way. And you've lived it, and you're doing incredible things. And I am just so thankful for the opportunity for you here to share your story of ascendance and triumph. And you certainly are inspirational in so many different ways. And I thought we really were able to canvas that on this edition of the On to Something podcast. Aisha Chaney, coordinating producer to ESPN SportsCenter in Los Angeles. I'm Bryan Fenley. Aisha, this was a lovely conversation, cherished every second of it. And thank you so much for making the time.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it, Bryan.